and Tate podcast with Brucey, Chuff and Lush.
How are we, gentlemen?
Good. Big show.
Big show.
Big show. Big couple days.
We've got a very special guest tonight. We've got the Perth Glory coach, Richard Garcia, joining us on this week's episode. How you doing, mate?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
He was a bit taken back by the boys in the Italian shirts tonight.
Oh, mate, if I could wear it to work, I'd be wearing it all week.
I slept in mine last night.
I imagine you did.
So the boys were just chatting to Richard before we started, and they asked him if he got up to the game, but Richard said he watched the replay. What do you think of the Euros, mate?
Decent. There's some good games. I thought Spain were really good.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of allegiance to Spain, obviously when Australia's not playing, when it's things like the Euros, Spain's your
definitely.
like Chiari.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
obviously.
So were your parents born in Spain?
Yeah, both.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I think his parents and Maya Wellon, all that all came over on the boats together. So that's how
We call them compadre.
the compadres.
The Spanish came on boats as well.
Yes. It's a little bit different back in those days. Yeah, so what do you think of the quality of the football in the Euros, considering everything that's gone on this year?
Yeah, really good. Italy, obviously the standout of the tournament, and deserved win for the tournament. But it's surprising some of the teams that did get through. I thought England was sort of a team that scraped their way through, and but being at home really helps for me. That's part of the reason why they got so far, is because they're at home, and having the home support always helps.
How does it compare watching tournaments and football now on TV when you're coaching? Is it different to when you were a player or even as a fan? Like, do you switch into that sort of coaching mindset and try and analyse different tactics and everything?
Yeah, that's a hard bit. So you don't actually enjoy the game. You don't.
Yeah.
You sort of having a look at what they do, because you think, all right, how can I sort of?
Do you have a
adapt?
notepad?
No, I don't go that far. Especially at 3 in the morning.
Dictaphone or something.
Yeah, not at 3 in the morning.
Whispering. Well, what do you think of, in saying that then, like watching the England game, the way Southgate sort of coached, and then even that decision at the end, the penalty, putting on a young player like that, taking that penalty. What do you think of that from like a coach's point of view? Even his style of play, I felt like he played a real boring sort of game, just defensive. Like, you're at home, try and take the game by the neck and try and win it.
Kind of did in the first 3 minutes. They scored.
That's it. And then after that, it just seemed like they were just happy for that and just sat back,
It's first final for how many years? So, you got to think about that. The amount of pressure that's on their shoulders. The Italians have been there, done that. So it becomes harder when the weight of a nation that hasn't won anything for a long time is on your shoulders. So I think they went out to sort of contain Italy. Obviously Italy had a good tournament and we're looking strong. What are they? Unbeaten in 34 now.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
that is a crazy record. So look, I mean, it's hard. The decision at the end, if it comes off and they win it, he's a genius. He's a genius because you take off, players to bring on strikers who are fresh rather than guys that are tired. So look, it's a hard one. As a coach, you're never going to get it always right, and he's gambled and he lost.
Yeah.
You were involved in a few penalty shootouts through your career. What's the walk to the penalty spot like?
I don't know if you can describe it. Yeah, I don't know if you can describe it. You're sort of half thinking on the job ahead. Yeah. You're sort of half thinking about what's going on in the crowd. What happens if I miss?
Yeah.
And I think towards that back end of the walk where you're sort of approaching, you've got to sort of just let that all go.
Yeah.
And then you go into...
Did you have a few sort of tricks that you would use, like a couple of deep breaths or anything like that you?
Yeah, I think the deep breaths helped, but I would always think, who cares? What's the difference? It's just a penalty. A lot of people's nights going to be ruined if I miss, but I'm not saving lives, So
exactly
it's not
right.
like there's someone on the table that I've got to operate on. So
100%.
that was sort of my mindset, and it sort of worked, because in the end it sort of relaxed me a little bit and made me think, well, what's the worst that can happen? I miss a penalty.
What was your record like from the spot?
Pretty good. I think I missed one, and that was...
Did you have a certain side that you're always going to go
A few people
there?
have been asking that, actually. It was one of the questions.
Yeah, look, I did. There was a favoured side, and I used to practice against the goalkeeper and tell him I'm going that way. So that way,
even if he dived,
did dive, I knew I was
You
hitting
could
it well
pick it.
enough to actually to get it there. So
I would never take one.
I used to take him.
No.
Took a fair few.
No, I'd be 11th, the last, absolute last person.
So obviously growing up for me, Adam played for Armidale. I played for Balcatta Stirling in Perth growing up. You were probably one of the guys that all the young guys were sort of trying to aspire to be, because you played at Kingsway Olympic and then you went across to West Ham at 16. Tell us a little bit about how that all came about and the experience of sort of moving overseas at such a young age.
Look, it was actually pretty random the way I got over there.
Yeah.
Obviously, my brother played as well, and he was pretty good.
Very good. Canberra Cosmos, and came across the Glory as well.
Yeah, and he was in the young Ollie Roos and all that sort of stuff. And there was an agent that actually wanted to take him over to the UK. And at that time, I was playing at Kingsway, and he just said, "Come down and watch my brother. I'll be down there, and you can come and talk to me there." And then after the game, he just sort of said, "Look, I'll take his both over." So that's how it come about.
All right.
So you went over with your brother?
No, my brother ended up getting injured, and he stayed, and I went.
No.
Oh, Jesus.
So he's him being there, and I think he was back from Canberra at the time as well.
Yeah.
So it was sort of a bit of luck, really.
Was he in the AIS or
He was in the AIS,
yeah.
and then after that he went to Canberra Cosmos, and they'd just come out, and then
Yeah, he did very well. I remember in the early days, didn't he have long hair when he was playing as well?
Does your brother remind you? That could have been me.
Yeah.
That your career could have been his.
No, he
sliding
doesn't.
doors moment,
He doesn't. No, he doesn't. But he's had a lot to say in my career. So
So when you got over to Europe, it was West Ham
Yep.
that you're there. So you're in the junior academy. What's it like as a foreigner, an Australian coming into the system? Obviously, a lot of local lads, a lot of British, maybe Irish or anything like that.
Yep.
What's it like as a foreigner coming into that system? Are you accepted and you embraced, or is it more like you got to earn your stripes?
yeah, I think to start with, they give you the cold shoulder, and then they sort of see what you've got in the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they probably grow a bit of respect for you once they see that because they get loads of guys that go over on trial, and even when I was there as a player, you do get a lot of guys that come on trial and they're probably not up to standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they probably think, oh, this guy's coming in from Australia. And it's only until you get on the park and you show them that then they can go, oh, okay, he's got something.
Is there a few tough challenges early just to let you know that they're there?
welcome to the league.
I was in England, right?
Yeah. So when did you make your sort of professional debut for West Ham? What age were you?
Oh, mate, I'm getting old. But I think I would have been 18. So
18?
I sort of
That was your first league appearance, or?
that would have been my first cup appearance. So I'm pretty sure I came off the bench and I was 18.
League
Wow.
Cup or FA?
League Cup.
League Cup. Okay.
Wow.
League Cup. And
Who are sorry, no, you're right.
No, and then after that, I think it would have been the Premier League. Probably would have been maybe a year or two after that.
Wow.
Who was in the team when you made your debut? Like who were the star players for West Ham at the time?
Rio Ferdinand, Frank Lampard,
Jeez.
Paolo
Jesus.
Zacanio.
Ever heard of him? Wow.
What was it like on the training pitch with those guys? I mean, like Paolo Di Canio is like an anti-hero.
He's a god to West Ham
he's-
right now.
and he's a god to West Ham, but he's always a character. But you got Rio Ferdinand. You mentioned Frank Lampard. They're two English greats, legends. Like, did you know at the time? Because they would have been really young in their career.
Yeah, it
Did
was,
you
yeah.
know at the time that they were going to be superstars?
No, they were just always pegged to be that. I think
Yeah.
they'd sort of, when I got there, they were just sort of cracking into the first team and were doing really well. But to see the careers they've had is crazy. So, yeah, look, that squad had a real depth of quality and, some guys that did really well in their careers.
Yeah, I remember. I think that would have been around about the time I got my first West Ham wallet, and decided I loved because obviously you were paying for them. So me and my brother stuck with West Ham all the way through. So
Poor bastard.
yeah, we had a great year this year. So no, it's fantastic. So obviously from West Ham, you then went on to I think it was Orient.
Orient.
So Leighton Orient was
Leighton Orient, yeah.
was like a loan deal, and that
Yeah.
was sort of they normally do that to young guys that they think you need a bit of men's football,
Yeah.
get kicked around, get pushed around. So did that for a little while, and that was the first time I got injured. And that was like I did my cruciate from a bad challenge. That would have been what would have been league. I don't know what it is now. It's probably there. So it would have been League 2 back then.
Right.
So you're getting the guys who are
Scrappers.
pretty rough and ready, and here I was this kid, who's pretty quick and was sort of going past people. So of course you're going to get kicked.
yeah.
So
Other than the injury, sort of obviously the rehab, you said the ACL that you did. Did you come back? Did you feel like you were less athletically gifted after the injury? Because Damon and I have done
Both done
ACL.
their
He's done it numerous times. I couldn't imagine running as fast as I was before the injury. But I'm not a professional or anything like that. But do you feel like you lost a little bit after?
Yeah, I probably did.
Yeah.
Like, look, if I'm totally honest, I've done 2 on the left and 1 on the right.
Done 3 knees.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 ACLs and my left I can't even really bend past 90.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be
Heard that.
sore when I get a little bit older. But I did lose a little bit of pace.
Yeah.
But that made me adapt. I had to adapt and use other parts, which is probably my brain, and got through it that way.
What's it like at the lower levels in terms of, you mentioned that they're scrappers, but is it mostly sort of journeyman guys who've been around a long time, or is there a lot of younger players playing in that?
No, there's a lot of young players as well. Probably the guys who don't make the academy sides at Premier League clubs.
Yeah.
And sometimes those guys actually do better. Who's the latest one? Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie
I
Vardy,
mentioned,
probably
yeah.
the latest one. But back then it was like Bobby Zamora, who
Yeah.
came from Brighton, who was League 2 and then made his way all the way up to Premier League and played for England eventually. So it was a breeding ground for those guys as well, who probably missed out on playing for a
And
Premier
how
League
does
club.
the standard of that league compare to, you've played A-League, MLS,
Yep.
I don't know what other leagues you've played around, but how does that League 2 or League 1 or whatever compare to around the world? We obviously know it's not as like the Premier League or the Championship, but...
Yeah, look, League 2 would probably be... Yeah, it's hard to say because I think here in Australia we're probably we're a bit more conscious of our tactics and we're a bit better with the ball, whereas League 2, I think because of the fact that they're earning their living, and they get their bonuses at the end of the week, and those guys are, that's part of their wages. So in the end, those guys are fighting for their lives. And I think there's that definite difference between just Australia and UK in general, is that it's dog eat dog out there, and if you don't play well this season, there's going to be a guy that comes in next season is going to take your spot, and then you go to a lower league team after that. So that's why the league is so scrappy. That's why the results really do matter down at that end, because it's a difference between you earning this much money this year and that much money next year.
So you then went on to obviously have some pretty success at Colchester. I think you got promoted with them, did you?
Yeah, we got promoted from League 1. So I went there. I got to about 24 at West Ham, and it was sort of like I was on the bench and sort of coming on and playing a few games, but not really establishing myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other guys were sort of doing better than me. They were at lower league teams and they'd, forged a career for themselves and were making a name for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas I was really sort of on the Premier League bench, but not really making a name for myself or getting enough football.
Yeah.
So I probably would have fizzled out. And, I spoke to my agent and just sort of said, what do you think I should be doing? And he sort of said, go out and play some football. He goes, the more football you play, the more experience you've got, people will take a chance on you.
Yeah.
So that was the whole reason behind me leaving West Ham and going to Colchester, who was a great little small club and had great fans, and we got promoted from there. And
did you get up to the championship? Yeah.
So
What's that like going through a promotion with them, like riding out the high afterwards and, the elation?
Mate, that's great, especially they were a little small team as
Yeah.
well in a little small town. So
Whereabouts are they?
they are north of London. I think, no. Sorry, sorry.
You only played a couple hundred games.
East of London.
London.
East of London, about an hour. So it wasn't
That's
too
what
far
I always
away.
like about the Premier League, that these lower teams, there's always the promotion, relegation. Like, even if you're not going to win the league, whatever, there's always that battle somewhere, like these lower teams. So having that with a team, I imagine the whole town just shut down afterwards, sort of thing, and everyone just going nuts. Or
Yeah, so they do the Champions League thing with the bus and
yeah.
the streets are flooded.
Yeah.
Exactly like that, but with not even a third of the people.
And so with those small towns, how big was the stadium? Was it like a 5,000?
Yeah, it was. I think it was about 6,000 seater.
Yeah.
But it was
Always
Packed
packed.
It was
everywhere.
always packed and it was
Yeah.
rocking every week, and especially when we were doing well, it was actually a fight to get tickets. So it was
awesome.
actually a really good atmosphere,
Did you
especially
stay
when
up
you're winning.
in the championship? Did you stay?
Yeah, we came. I think that was the highest. Well, that's the high position that ever had it in their history. So we came 10th that year,
Oh,
and
wow.
we were 2 points off playoffs. So
Yeah,
we
wow.
got promoted, and then nearly got in the playoffs the next year to go up to the Premier League.
Yeah,
so
wow.
And then you moved across to Hull, which is where obviously you had success. I think you got promoted obviously from Hull into the Premier League and then got back into the Premier League. What was that sort of like moving up to? I think they're in the north, aren't they, Hull?
Yeah. So they're east as well. Let me get my bearings again.
Yeah.
they're like northeast.
Yeah.
And again, they're a club that sort of hadn't been to the Premier League before. So I've been pretty fortunate to be at two clubs that I've been at the most successful teams.
Yeah.
So
sweet.
it was pretty good, every time that we played, and in both teams it was pretty good because of the fact that the fans couldn't believe where they were heading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been amazing
So
now.
playing up in the Premier League, all these amazing venues and stadiums, is there one that was just rocking that just stands out?
Look, there's a few, but some are good for different reasons. Like somewhere like the old Highbury was really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then the Emirates was fantastic because it was like a carpet.
Yeah.
It was a brand new stadium at the time when I was playing, so that was unbelievable.
But there was probably little atmosphere there.
Yeah, it wasn't as good. Whereas somewhere like, you would think like, somewhere like Newcastle
Yeah, right.
was buzzing for crowd, Places like Stoke were really good as well because they'd abuse you a lot and, it was a different type of atmosphere.
Did you always play them on a Wednesday night?
a cold Tuesday night or...
Yeah, no, definitely. But, different grounds were good for different reasons.
Yeah. I remember, I think my brother went and watched you at Old Trafford when you played Man United and got him tickets and stuff. So he said that stadium, he reckons, was absolutely amazing as well.
Do you pinch yourself when you're walking out onto these, Old Trafford, Old Highbury, all that? Like, do you have to sort of grasp the moment when you're going out to or you're just complete business?
Yeah, I think in hindsight you would have liked to have soaked it all up, but really you're just going out there and going, I better do my job today.
Yeah.
And when you're lining up, obviously against United, I don't know what years roughly.
So Evra, I lined up against Evra. So Evra was my direct
sort of
opponent.
been like Vidic, Ferdinand, current that United team, Giggs.
Yep.
Ronaldo would have been.
Yeah,
there.
Ronaldo was there for the first year, and then he left.
Do you look at him and go, "Wow," or is this like for me? We're sitting there, they're not idols for us, but they're in that echelon. We never think we're going to cross paths with them ever or anything like that. But those players, like Ronaldo, is an all-time great.
Yeah.
Did you grasp? You still didn't?
I swear I still don't even think about it.
Just an opponent. It's just a peer, hey? You just see him as a peer.
You're just trying to go out there and make sure you don't lose, or you make sure that you're trying to win the game. And I think it's only when people talk about it that you then start to realise. Because I get these questions all the time, and it's only then that I start to think back. Hey, it actually wasn't bad.
You're obviously got kids.
Yeah.
So when you're telling are your kids asking stories about when you played against these players or anything like that?
Yeah. Look, I think he knows from other people.
Yeah.
So I don't really sort of speak to him about it. That my daughter's interested, but not too interested. But my son sort of hears it now and again, and then I think he's had the chance sort of later on in my career where we went back to England and sort of see certain things that we went to the old grounds and stuff like that I played at. So he sort of got to see that sort of side of it, which was good. But yeah, I really haven't asked him how he feels about it.
Yeah. Were you a shirt swapping guy?
I wish I was. Like I've got a load.
Yeah.
But I think about some of the players I've played against, and it was like a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I think it got drummed into us, especially when we were young at West Ham, that it wasn't about going on the pitch and changing tops.
Yeah.
So that got drummed out of us. Like,
So
you're there to do a job.
Who was the coach? Because was it Redknapp?
Redknapp was the coach, but the youth team coach would always sort of drum that into us. That was Tony Carr, who he's been there for ever and produced a load of players. So that was sort of their ethos, that you're not going on there to swap shirts, you're going on there to play the game. So,
because you see these players, even today, they're talking to the guy in the game saying, "Can I have your shirt?" And you can't imagine that player's completely focused on his job at hand if he's asking for some, obviously great players for a collector's item. So if you're as a current coach of Perth Glory, and we had Del Piero playing the A-League and all these superstars. I don't know which current superstars in the A-League at the moment, but do you have to tell them not to get overawed by the occasion or by the player, or is it's just accepted you're a professional, do your job?
No, look, I think it's different here. But the thing I can't get over is guys being really friendly with each other in the tunnel before games.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of bugs the life out of me because,
I agree.
you know, you're supposed to be going to war with the guy next to you, you know, not...
It's just 90 minutes. Do it after the game.
That's exactly right.
I'm
know,
with you
for me,
100%.
it's
I
like,
hate that.
you know, I played against some real good friends and we wouldn't even look at each other.
Yeah.
We would be standing next to each other and just eyes forward.
I would play better against my friends. Like I remember playing against Chop a few times. I wanted to take his legs off. Like that's like I couldn't walk off that field. I hated losing
that's
to
how
him
it
as
should
well.
be.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. Not shaking hands and then be accepting that, you know, you're going to lose against your mate. No,
Because
chance.
you're still very close to Michael Carrick?
Yeah.
So funny story.
And we've all heard 150 times.
But our listeners haven't.
Yeah, I
listeners
know.
haven't.
I knew this was
I was
coming,
lucky
though.
enough to go to Richie's wedding and ended up being paired with Michael. If he's still married to her, but I was paired with his partner and we did all the wedding games together. He was a great lass, great. But I remember going up on stage, like, obviously we knew who Michael Carrick was at the time, and I was like, oh, can we grab a photo? Started talking to him a little bit about soccer. But again, another top bloke, but you would have played against him quite a bit in your time over there.
And I think that was, you know, eventually once the game's in its flow, you know, you might crack a joke to each other or, you know, but that's after the battle started. Do you know what I mean? You know, whereas in the tunnel and that, we wouldn't even look at each other.
Yeah.
And then after the game, we'd be like, all right,
Yeah.
let's sit down and have a chat.
Do
have a beer,
you see
whatever.
it now that you're on the other side as a coach and the newer generation and all that? Do you see a difference between like locker rooms and like the way players are now with social media? Because I imagine was there a lot of social media, especially when you started.
No.
Did you find that like the big difference now, that sort of in the locker room?
Yeah, definitely. I think it has a good effect and a bad effect. You know, I when it first sort of came out, I was at Hull, and there was a young guy who actually came from Man United, and it actually made him fall off the edge. You know, he was actually having a bad time, and the fans got on his back, so he didn't know how to deal with it. So that a lot of that stuff is the guys don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And until you're old enough and you're comfortable enough in your own skin, you know, we try and tell the guys, you know, be careful what you put out. You know, I even think that the Players Association are trying to, you know, ban some of that stuff so that they can just focus on football.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
there's obviously yesterday morning after the penalties, you've seen reports now that it just happened that the three black players were the three players that missed the penalties, and then you just see the racial stuff that come up with murals
ridiculous.
being spray painted over and stuff like that. You see stuff like that, and you're like, how is that still happening? Like in this day and age, like you can't believe it still happens, and that trying to stamp that sort of stuff out is definitely something that really needs to happen because
Absolutely.
imagine being Saka, imagine being those guys, and you're seeing that stuff on top of missing a penalty.
What's he? He's only 19, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, where does he play?
Arsenal.
Arsenal. Jesus. Crazy, considering...
So you're going through the Premier League Championship. When did you get first noticed as an Australian Socceroo? Like when did you make your debut, and when? How far into your career was that?
Look, I sort of skipped because I went to England so young. I sort of skipped all that young Socceroo
Youth
stuff.
teams?
Yeah, so I sort of missed quite a bit of that. I went to one Olympic, or I was in one Olympic campaign. I think it was for 2004, but got injured just before. Did my ACL.
That bastard.
Yeah, but yeah. Other than that, I sort of had been like left in the cold, you know. So I think
I remember that about you with your Socceroos. Like for some reason they just wouldn't pick you for a while, and then you got on their radar once. I think you sort of went across the Hull or even Colchester, and then they started picking you, and you always did bloody well. But for some reason, they wouldn't pick you.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't that they weren't picking me. I think it was more that I wasn't on their radar.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's sort of the biggest thing is that when you're going through the youth teams and all that sort of stuff, and you know, back then it was the AIS, so they had that group of players that they wanted to sort of keep an eye on and push through. So in the end, it's not like now with social media and everyone's getting reported on. Everyone knows about everything. Whereas back then it was a bit more like, you know, Aussie is abroad and that much.
That's what I've always wondered as well. Like even just Australians, where you hear like a team signs a Swedish second division player. Like, how do these players get noticed? Like, there's so many players playing. What gives them that edge? Is it like the agents pushing them to the clubs, and is it scouts? Is it a bit of both? Or like, I always wondered how it comes about.
I think it's a bit of everything.
Yeah,
you know, I think it's being now on the other side. It's now almost you got to start looking for people because you know, and you're looking everywhere. You're not just looking just in one spot because if you just look in the one spot, everyone's fighting for the same people. So
so you're getting like agents reaching out to you guys and stuff.
Yeah.
They kind of just
Here's my
emailing
guy,
everyone and sort of see, hopefully someone bites back and they just send a clip or something like that. Is it
pretty
stuff
much.
Like
and now with social media and you know things like LinkedIn, you know you're getting that every single day.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sort of hard to then filter through all
Yeah,
that.
that's
So
what I always
it's a little
wondered.
bit less refined than probably back then, where you probably trusted an agent or and something like that.
So where did you make your Socceroo debut? Was it in like Uzbekistan or something?
No,
like
it was
that?
in London, which
Oh,
was
was it?
lucky enough against South Africa. So
So
it
obviously
ended
a
up working
friendly.
well.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a friendly. And then after that, it was pretty short Socceroos career, but I went to a World Cup, went through the World Cup campaign.
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
And then again, was supposed to go to the Asia Cup and did my knee again.
Fuck's sake.
So
I was at that game.
No, not that Asian.
not
Cup.
the Asia Cup, the one before,
Oh,
where they
right.
lost against Japan in the final.
Okay.
The one just before. I'm that old.
So what's
You
it,
look good. I just assumed.
we love.
It's the Spanish genes, mate. You wogs don't have it.
We love tournament football. World Cup's the pinnacle. What's it like? I mean, is it? I'm a bit of a fanboy about this stuff, but when you're going to a World Cup, are you? You would have played Germany, I think, from memory. You would have played
Ghana,
and what was that on?
Serbia.
Serbia. So you played against Germany's the upper echelon. I mean, I know we got done 4-0 or something like that. But was it was it everything it cracked up to be? Because you would have grown up with World Cups and everything like that. But
Yeah, it was, to be honest. I think the biggest thing was that's probably the first time that in a game I was like,
Yeah.
pinch myself, soak it all in because of the national anthem. You wouldn't think that, when you see it, and that's probably the biggest thing. Everyone stands up for the national anthem, and so, but it's probably the strongest I've ever heard the Aussie national anthem being sung, and that just sent shivers down my spine. So that then really got you up for the game.
could you hear the vuvuzelas during the game?
Yeah, that was terrible.
That's-
That killed it.
That ruined that
That
whole
killed-
World Cup. I mean, not to mention
Yeah.
Italy did shit, but it feels like when you're watching on TV that it was just annoying. The
Yeah,
whole
it
time.
was. It was. Yeah,
Do you hang around after the group stages, or was it just on a
No, we
flight?
all took off.
Just go
Yeah.
back?
Yeah, because by the time if you hang around, then all of a sudden you got to go back to your club. So it was off back home, have a little break, and then
Oh, so
back
you
to
take that
club.
downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you read about all the sort of these countries, especially the proper countries, they go all out for the World Cup. They get the whole hotel, they get private training pitches, chefs, everything like that. Is that what for Australia?
we had everything. Yeah, so we had our own chef. We had pretty much the whole hotel.
Yeah.
It was the whole hotel. So and it was beautiful. So
Did you have family there as well?
my mum flew over, my brother, my uncle and auntie.
Yeah.
So quite a few cousins. So there's a few out there.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Great. So that Germany game, you actually led the line that day, didn't you? That was a bit of a surprise selection because obviously, you came on the scene there. Playing you solo up front, was that something that you were sort of really looking forward to, or you thought maybe not the right tactic? What were you sort of thinking when they rolled that out? Is it something you guys had done during the training camp?
Look, I think we'd done it during the training camp, and Timmy and I were like combining really well in training and in previous games as well. We'd been really doing well together. But we came up against Germany. To be honest, they smashed England that tournament 4-0 and Argentina 4-1.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were the only ones they hit for 6,
No,
So,
exactly right.
That was the first sort of tournament for that Germany side, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they got to the semis.
Spain
Against
beat Netherlands in the final.
Yeah, so Spain.
Does that,
Spain beat
did that
Germany.
soften the blow a bit?
Yeah.
That Spain one? Yeah.
I come home and watch the Spain games, and it's all right.
Yeah, sweet.
Do you, once you start playing for Australia, do you have the same sort of passion that you for Spain? Is it sort of changed? Is it sort of still like
Head to head,
Yeah.
Spain are playing Australia.
You
Who
know
are you
what?
going for?
That all changed when I went to England.
Oh,
yeah.
When I was here, I was
Spanish,
Spanish descent, and then as soon as I went there, I was Aussie.
Yeah.
So no one, and even when I told people that I had Spanish parents,
Nah.
I was still Aussie.
Aussie, mate.
As soon as they hear the
got to
accent,
England,
yeah.
as soon as I got to England, I was Aussie. And then I even felt even more Aussie when I did go to Spain and started speaking Spanish, and they could hear my accent. You're not Spanish.
Did you ever get approached by any Spanish clubs to go play over there?
Yeah, there were sort of like little things here and there, but they were never sort of concrete. So I wasn't maybe a gambling guy to sort of say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and go.
Yeah.
I was pretty comfortable in England at the time, and I knew people were starting to talk about me, and I knew that there was going to be opportunities there, so it became an easier choice.
To stay there.
When did you go after England?
Look, England. I came home, and then I only went to America for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6 weeks. So it was just like in the off season between clubs, and I just wanted to see if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
Minnesota?
Where'd you go? Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Cold? Was it cold?
No, summer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was all right. So it actually worked out well because I almost had a 6 week holiday and then came home. So it was great.
And you played for Perth Glory here.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I played for
And Sydney?
Melbourne
Okay.
City, which used to be Melbourne Heart,
Yeah.
and then Sydney.
And how does the professionalism of the Australian club stack up to the English system? Are we still well behind in terms of that?
No, in a lot of things we're in front.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to the lower league teams, especially as far as facilities are concerned, you know, I think we have quite a bit in this country. Yeah, we probably don't have the amount of facilities that they've got, but there's a massive difference from like a Man City compared to a Colchester, for instance, you know.
Yeah.
So if someone's playing at Colchester or Cambridge or somewhere like that, the facilities aren't great. You know, they're driving to their training ground. They haven't got their nice training ground just outside the building. And, you know, I think everyone sort of thinks about football abroad and they only think about the
big
top
clubs,
top big clubs. They don't think about the leagues below that. And I think that's true of any country you go to, you know, whether it be Spain, Italy, Germany. Those lower league clubs don't have the same resources, don't have the same facilities as the bigger clubs.
And you're a loanee player, or you've been a loanee player. What's it like being that guy in that club? I mean, you're coming there, you're obviously owned by a bigger club or another club. Is it, again, like sort of when you did that youth system setup where you had to come in and earn your stripes, is there a sort of a stipulation that you have to play a certain amount of games or anything like that? Or is it just...
No, you still have to earn it,
Yeah.
but it's just if you're not doing well, they'll just bring you back. So it's pretty much, you know, the coach will say, you know, you've got to earn it. And you probably will play because they think you're going to play because they've probably watched you play before. But if you're not doing well, they'll just call you back and you're back at your hometown club.
Yeah.
Great. So now, obviously, you finished off your career with Glory. Always wanted to ask you why you never came straight back to Perth. Was it more those other clubs were a little bit better set up than Glory, or Glory hadn't approached you yet? Because obviously you finished up at Glory in the end. What was sort of the gist of that?
Look, to be honest, when I first came back, I actually was not thinking about staying in Australia.
Right.
So I actually thought about trying to go to Asia, but it sort of didn't come about. And I did speak to Glory, but there was obviously we've got salary cap in this country, so it becomes hard, and it was hard for me to fit in. So in the end, I sort of had a little look around, and Melbourne Heart was sort of willing to give me a 1-year contract. That's another thing, you know. I had options to sign for Western Sydney at the time, which, you know, they actually did well, went to the Champions League and did really well, and then I had a chance to go to Victory, but they all wanted to sign me for like 3 years.
Yeah.
At that time, in my head, I had it. I want to go
Short
to
term,
Asia.
yeah.
I wanted a 1-year turnaround.
Right. Okay. And then you ended up at Glory. How many years were you at Glory? It was a couple in the end, wasn't it?
Probably about 3 or 4.
How did we? I can't remember. Were you there when they had the salary cap issue and they ended up? Yeah,
That was my
shit.
first year.
So they were top of the table for listeners at home, and then they got done with the salary cap. And would you lose like all the points? And you ended up just finishing outside the sixth, didn't you, that year? Or
Yeah,
something?
they just put a 7th. They didn't even dock us points. They just said you're 7th. You're just outside the finals, which was disappointing.
Who was the coach at the time?
Kenny Lowe.
That's right. Yeah.
Kenny Lowe.
So, you know, you're a coach now. You classified as a coach or a manager? Always.
Depends what country you're in.
At what point in your career did you think, I want to be a coach?
Look, I think towards the back end in England, I sort of thought about it a little bit more seriously. As I got older, I started to have an effect on the younger guys, and I was helping younger guys within the squad, and I quite enjoyed that. You know, I like to have my say and try and get the best out of people. So you know that sort of carried on to Australia. I did that at the other clubs that I was at in Australia, and then when I came back to Perth, I sort of did that with the younger guys here, and it sort of just grew legs from there.
Yeah, and do you have to get your coaching badges or anything like that, or is it not required?
Yeah, so you have to do all that sort of stuff, yeah.
And is that, you know, compared to like high school or university or anything like that, Did you even finish high school?
No.
Yeah.
No. How good's that?
Worked out all right.
Worked out pretty good.
All right.
So is it strenuous testing? Like, is it a extensive program? What do
You
they
get a bit of leeway
Yeah.
for being a Premier League player
Yeah,
as well, and
surely.
a former Socceroo. They're kind of like, well, you know.
You'd think so, but
No.
no, you don't.
Wow.
But look, I think because you've been doing it all your life, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the guys that are coming,
You're passionate about it. Yeah.
and you pretty much know you've had a million training sessions yourself from other coaches, whereas when you're doing a course with other people that probably haven't had the exposure that I have, it's a little bit more difficult. So
You know the language at least, sort of thing.
know the language, know what it looks like to set something up, know how to get that out of this. If you're trying to get A, how do I get A? It's easy for me because I see it a lot quicker and I've seen it all my life.
Yeah.
So
Do you have previous coaches that sort of you inspired from, like thought about why you're doing your training stuff? Is there any particular that you kind of took their methods or their style from more than others? Or
yeah, look, I think I was like that as a player as well. I sort of took the best things out of every coach, well, not the best things, the things that I like, and sort of said, all right, well, I'll take that with me and I'll take that with me. And that was where in my playing days as well, I like what he said about that and I like what he does here.
Who do you think as a coach had the best or the most profound impact on you?
That's a hard
just a
one.
little bit from everyone. you reckon?
Again, it's sort of like you take your little bits and pieces because if you take too much shit from any of them, you're stuffed. So
Yeah.
What's it like under Redknapp? Because like he's a character still. I mean,
how long have you got?
we got a while.
No, look, he definitely was a character. That was a great dressing room, and there was always a good story about him and a good story about that group of guys.
Do you have a favourite story?
Yeah.
I probably can't
That you
tell them on
can
here.
tell?
mate. No,
Yeah,
There's not many I can tell on here.
My personal favourite's the Canio one he tells where I think he's playing in the game and Redknapp's saying, and the ref's not giving him any calls or anything like that, and DeCanio kicks it, goes and sits on the sideline or something like that and cries, and then Redknapp's trying to get him up to get him to play, and then eventually he gets up and goes on and scores a goal. I mean, you play with DeCanio. Surely there's a DeCanio story there as well.
That's probably one of them. That's probably the best one that he did on the pitch. He actually took his shin pads off, said, "No, just take me off, just take me off." And the ball came his way, and he was off. He was off again. So, but that was him. He was a great.
Were you
character.
there when he pushed?
Yeah.
When was it pushed the ref at Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was against West Ham, and that was when I was still in the youth team, and you had to go to watch the games.
Yeah.
And you did, you wanted to, but
Did you know at the time he was in trouble, like proper?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't touch the
I
ref.
don't think
You
do
don't
that,
touch the ref.
He pushed him actually over. The ref went
I think
over.
He was just like it was almost like he
sort
just
of-
go
get away from me.
and the ref.
This is what Wogs do. Go on. Yeah.
So, look, we'll jump into some fan questions. I know the first one's back because I was looking at them today, and one of them was, who was your favourite player to play with?
To play with. Look, I'll go with my mate Michael Carrick. We always linked up well together and always sort of had a good time. We always had like that same mindset, so it was good.
What about least favourite?
Yes, I was going to say, that's the next question.
I wasn't going to get away with that.
Yeah, least favourite, probably the captain Ian Ashby at Hull. Not because he was a bad player, just because he was a moaner. He just didn't stop moaning all game.
Oh,
But it was good.
He's one of those leaders, right?
Yeah, one of those leaders, mate. Just wouldn't stop moaning. Just shut up already.
All right, so favourite game that you played in? Is there one that sort of stands out for you that just goes, yeah, shit, that was a great game to be a part of?
Look, I think the World Cup game, for obvious reasons, being a World Cup, playing for your country, that's probably the biggest game for me. Not as far as performance, there were games. There was one game against Man United that I thought I had a really good game, and just everything came off for me that day. And that's one game that I always picture back and go, mate, I played really well that game.
Yeah.
And it was against United as well, so it was great.
So we got some obviously Glory fans here, so some of them written in. What was your favourite goal that you scored? What's the one that sort of stands out for you?
It's got to be the header.
That was a good header.
What, for Glory?
Nah, just in general.
In general, actually, there's a goal I scored at Colchester that for me was the best goal that I'd done. I just Cruyffed someone in the box, like everyone was going this way, and I Cruyffed, and even the keeper went that way, and I just tapped it in.
Yeah.
But everyone went for the dummy. So I was buzzing because the whole group just went like that, and I
Moved
just
over.
left and bang, just tapped it in. So it was
Reckon it's
great.
on YouTube.
I don't know. And
Colchester.
yeah, Colchester. I think it was when Roy Keane was the coach as well of Sunderland,
Oh,
So
right.
against something.
and Dwight York was there. So it was like.
So when
They
you're
were
doing
like a
the,
team?
did you have to how many? The Cruyff turn, obviously iconic, named after the player himself. Did you practice all those things a lot, or is it just something that just you did it once and you've got it down pat?
That's a hard one.
Spur of the moment, you just do it, or
What you mean in that scenario?
No,
or-
but just in
in
general,
mate.
yeah.
Everything takes practice. You know? I
So you weren't a trick guy, like you just
Nah,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I could do them, but it wasn't sort of something that I went to. I think it's because I started off being so quick that
just knock it past
I
them.
didn't
and-
need
yeah.
to. I didn't need it. You know.
Yeah.
All right. We got some, obviously, as a Glory fans. One of them's obviously young lady who's playing junior soccer at the moment. So she's asked, have you got any tips for us in terms of defending? What are some tips?
Don't dive in. You don't really have to make a tackle. You can just sort of usher people in one way, and then you don't have to get yourself on the ground. I think that's probably the biggest thing that the Italians showed.
I was going to say, isn't it the Maldini quote or something like that? That if you're making a tackle, then
It's already too late.
It's already too late.
Yeah.
So a lot of the defending is just what's in front of you, guarding space. You look at Chiellini this morning; he's 36 or whatever he is at the moment. Probably doesn't have the pace, but yet
They're up against
Harry Kane. Harry Kane didn't have
Sterling.
Harry Kane didn't have a touch in the box.
Yep.
To this like
they didn't
in
get
the
dribbled
game.
past the whole tournament.
No.
And didn't get dribbled past the whole tournament. I mean, like it just defending seems like it's more just being in the right position. I mean, I'm gathering most soccer players have to be in the right position,
But that's pretty
especially
hard
defensive,
because you're
yeah.
always taught to tackle, and you've
Yeah.
got to tackle, but it's when you tackle and how you tackle and knowing the moment to tackle. And part of that is really just ushering them into where you want them to go.
Okay. Have you got one?
No, my nonna just wanted me to tell you, please win the league, because we went to when they lost to
Sydney.
Wollongong back in the day, 3-0. I went with her then, and she made me sit through the whole game, the whole medal ceremony and everything, because it's a respect to the opponent.
Yeah.
And then I took her a couple of years ago, because she was a member from day one,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she can't go anymore. So I wheeled her there. We sat there at Optus Stadium. Got done again, so she just said, please win the league. She's only got a few left, she reckons, so just get her a league.
We'll try our best.
How'd you rate the season? Obviously, there was COVID interruptions and everything like that. It's your first season as coach. How would you sort of judge it, looking back on it?
Look, it's been a good and a bad season. For me, I think we probably should have done better, but considering everything we've been through and the fact that we've tried to rebuild the squad, and that's part of the biggest thing, is that we're trying to rebuild the squad. I don't think many people know that we're
That's definitely the first I've heard of that. So, yeah.
so we're actually trying to rebuild the squad.
Breaking
and actually
news.
we're trying to move the club in a different direction. We don't
Younger,
want
or is it?
not so much younger. It's more about, so we won the title 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe three now. 3 seasons ago we won the title. The next year we came sixth or fifth, just scraped in. And then and maybe 8 players or 9 players left.
Yeah.
And then this year we came ninth, and another few players left. So what we're trying to do is build an actual core group. It happens all the time in other sports, and I don't know why in soccer they don't let it happen.
Yeah.
And it does happen at other clubs. It happens at Man City. It happens at Liverpool. It just doesn't seem like that. We're in a rebuild. We're trying to build a group that are going to stay together for 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely.
And that for that to happen, you've actually got to get the right people through the door. You've actually got to get the right players in and get the right characters in, and the guys that actually want to play for Perth Glory.
Yeah.
Because whether you think it or not, there's going to be guys that come in that are journeymen that only want themselves to succeed
Exactly,
and not
yeah.
the group to succeed. And we want better for the club. We want to build something where in 3 or 4 years' time we are winning titles, and it's not just for 1 year, it's for 2 or 3 years where we are sustained and we have that success for a little while.
How would you describe yourself as a coach in terms of your playing style or your methodology?
You
Like,
just
is it-
took the next question, Adam. That was literally someone wrote
Will I
that
write
down.
that question?
Look, I like attacking football, and I do, I've got to work on that defensive side a little bit more, but I do like the attacking side, and I like my teams to want to attack. I think everyone wants to watch attacking football.
And is that attacking style? Is that you see it in the current football? It starts from the keeper, starts from the defence. Your first line of attack is defence, and your first line of defence is your attack. Is that how you see it? Are you possession based, or are you quick movement, get the ball forward? Well, can you go into a little bit more detail about the attack?
So it'll probably be a little bit more balanced because I think teams that just play possession. You look at Spain and how they just play possession.
Mm-hmm.
Teams tend to sit back and soak it all up.
Yeah,
and you've got to be good enough to break it all down. So.
You're not always going to have a Xavi or an Iniesta or anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly right. So you've got to be able to break it down. So you've got to be sort of balanced to know when to play possession and when to sort of try and catch them on the counter, which I think is something that Italy did really well in these Euros. They had the balance of being able to play whatever football was needed.
That game,
So you look against Spain, they didn't play any type of possession football. They played counter-attack, and they soaked it all up. But the next game against England, they played possession.
Yep.
So that for me is probably the biggest key is that we have enough in our locker to be able to do all of those bits and pieces.
So when you're recruiting players, is it more on the basis that fits your style, or do you recruit the best players you can and then try and build the style around them?
No, it's more to fit the style, but at the same time, again, we're a salary cap.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm Pep and I can go spend 263 million because I'm not happy and buy 3 left backs in my first year with 256 million.
And still not win the league.
And still not win the league, So I've got to be, that's why it probably takes a little bit longer, and you've got to be able to sort of say, okay, let's have a 4-year plan to try and get to where we want to go, rather than saying, you know what, we're going to win the league in the first year by buying it. And like you said, it doesn't happen for any of those guys straight away. You look at Pep didn't win it in the first year. Klopp didn't win it in the first year. So hardly anybody wins it in the first year because it's not really their side to start with. They've then got to impose or give the team the way they want to play. And then that team's got to learn that and be good at it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you started your coaching career like real in the deep end in the middle of this COVID stuff? Was that like a massive challenge? Now you kind of feel once this blows over, life's going to be a lot easier as a manager. It's just kind of the hardest possible scenario.
Has it blown over?
Yeah. when it does, if it does.
You had to stay over in the eastern states for weeks at a time, and then sometimes you didn't have games for a couple of weeks, and then you had that big run at the end of the season where you guys did bloody good, but you were paying like literally every third or fourth day you had a game.
So that was the hard bit. The hard bit was trying to make a bunch of guys go beyond what they're usually doing, because this year was an absolute joke. We went to Qatar for the Champions League. That was 3 weeks in a hotel, weren't allowed outside the hotel, only to train and play. So that's 3 weeks in a hotel. Then come back here, hotel quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So by the first 5 weeks of the season,
they haven't seen the outside.
And their brains are fried.
Yeah.
Then we have a delayed start because of COVID again. So then all the games are mounted up. We play 3 games in a week. Then all of a sudden, we come back from that little maybe 14-day trip away to the eastern states, and then we've got to quarantine again for 2 weeks, where you're only allowed at the house to train again. So by the first section of the season, a lot of the players' heads were already fried. And that's due to being a normal human.
Yeah.
How would
you
you
were really thrown in the deep end, first year round. Did well. That's
as I said, that run at the end of the season was bloody great. It's unfortunate that you had to go play the last, I think, 2 or 3 games you had to play on the Eastern States again. You played Brisbane, Wellington, all that shit away again.
We played those 3 games in a week, and it was 12,500 Ks of travelling.
Just no hope, no chance.
And 3 different time zones.
Yeah.
Wow.
How does it compare as a player to a coach? So think about game day. As a player and as a coach, how does it compare? I mean, imagine a coach would be a lot more work, but can you describe the lead up? Let's say it's a week.
Do you feel more pressure as a player or as a coach?
I think more as a coach.
Yeah.
I think more as a coach because I think when teams do poorly, it's always the coach's fault.
Buck stops at you. Yeah, exactly.
When the team's doing well, it's always the players.
Yeah.
So that sort of you sort of feel that bit of pressure, and that sort of part of me getting better as a coach is sort of maybe letting go on a bit of that and making sure that I'm just focused on what I'm doing. But coaching's sort of hard because you can't really have an effect on things you want to have an effect on. You can't you can affect the player's performance to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, it's him over there doing the work. So he's got to make the decisions.
Yeah.
You're setting him up, and our work's pretty much done
before the game.
Before the game, you're setting him up, and you're doing all the pre-game stuff and the work beforehand to try and get them in the right shape to be able to do it on the weekend. Once they cross that white line, it's a lot of it's up to them. And because you can't have an effect on that, and because I know that I've had that effect on the pitch.
Yeah.
You sort of sometimes feel like I want to run out there and give him a hand, you know.
You still get the itch?
Yeah, but then I run a little bit. And
Yeah, that's and then you look down at your scars. Yeah.
So we're big, obviously, US sports fans. Like we love the NFL, basketball, and that. One of the questions we got written in here was, if you could be a professional in any other sport, what would it have been?
NBA.
NBA, love your basketball. Who do you follow in the basketball?
I don't, mate. I don't. I just watch it all. I
Yeah.
watch it all. I started off, you know what? I'm actually quite sad because, you know, when I was a kid, I did go for teams. And then as soon as I got to the UK and I sort of started playing for like West Ham, because I was a Liverpool supporter as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as I went there, I sort of lost that. And then I sort of lost touch with all of that. And I thought, you know what? I don't just follow one team. I like watching sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And even, like, no matter what it is, I don't have a favourite. Like, I'll have favourite players and I'll have favourite this and that, but I won't have favourite teams.
Who is your favourite player in the NBA?
My son will kill me. Look, you can't go past LeBron because LeBron's got a bit of everything. But I've got to mention, because my son loves Klay Thompson, so I've got to say Klay Thompson
big
as well.
Klay.
That's a good one.
Hopefully
I
he's
like
back
that your
next
son-
year.
I like your son
Splash
picks
Brothers.
someone a little bit different.
Yeah,
You know, not the standard LeBron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like me.
So Russo's a big Suns fan. So the Suns obviously in the finals at the moment. So he's had luck. He's had the Suns. He's had Italy. Big Hawthorn supporter as well.
So I
So
can't win them all.
he just wins everything, and we're getting.
So how did you become a Suns fan? So this
So
is
Charles Barkley.
okay.
So like, I mean, like, the way I say it is that, you know, if you're picking an American team, it's either you've been to the city or you like a player. But then I was young. I didn't, because you grow up in an Australian sort of environment where no player leaves the team or no
Yeah.
important player leaves the team.
Yeah.
I followed Charles Barkley for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden he's gone to the Houston Rockets. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, but then like you just get used to it. So I just pick the Suns. I stick with them. I'm a pretty loyal bloke, so I'm not gonna. I don't drift. You see these, you know, the fans of today that follow the player to the team. So LeBron, you know, he's a Miami Heat fan, and then they goes to Cleveland, Cleveland fan, all that stuff.
But are they a fan or are they just a fan of
I think just fan of players. That's
Yeah.
just generally
Yeah.
it. So like, you know, you said, you mentioned like NBA. Is that your way of sort of switching off when you're not thinking about football? Like, I mean, I can't imagine. I think if I was coaching a team, I'd be thinking about it all the time, like just constantly.
Yeah, you
And we relax by watching football.
Yeah.
Or something. Like, you're
yeah,
the opposite.
you don't really switch off. You
Yeah.
know, it's sort of hard because I don't think people actually realise how much goes into it and how much it plays on your mind. And it's not just one thing. There's, you know, a load of things, and it's not just about the football. I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to learn is that it's not just about the things that we're doing on the park. I've got to worry about the other stuff that's going on in the background, and not just with the players, but with the club, and sort out the stuff behind the scenes as well. So that's probably something that I've really had to learn is how to manage that side of it, and how to really, when I am focusing on the football, actually being right there and present and not letting the other stuff in the background affect that.
So on an off-season day, average day, if you're getting up, you're going to the club.
Yep.
9 to 5, normal sort of thing. Well, I imagine it's longer than 9 to 5, maybe. Or
Yeah, look, there's also sort of, you know, it's sort of most days of the week, you know, so you might cut off one day early and go a little bit earlier, but then other days you'll be working late. So yeah, it's weird hours. It's no life really.
And what's the off season like? Is it just, you know, is it looking at tapes of players from, you know, agents and stuff like that, or is it, you know, training prep? Like, what's the schedule like? I mean, obviously,
It's all that.
Yeah.
It's all that. You know, we already know what we're doing the first 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So we've planned every session to the T for the first 8 weeks. You know, we've got to then see what that looks like as far as kilometres, what that looks like is in high speed runs, and then you've got to try to design that so it's all the same. What do we want to get out of them football wise? What do we need to work on? Then what players you need to bring in, the players that you have brought in, you know, we got to get them in, housed, in from other places without COVID. People that are coming in, you know, where are they quarantining? All that sort of stuff that, you know, you have got other people at the club that are helping you, but as a coach, that's sort of part of your worry because you say, no, are they going to be their first day of pre-season? How do you prepare and plan? So there's all that sort of stuff. What was the other one you said? You said something else that was you were pretty spot on, to be fair.
What did I say? I said training prep, watching scouts.
Watching scout, that's another
Scouting
one. You know,
tapes,
you're watching
yeah.
players, and you know sometimes you're watching 3 or 4 players, and you might know after the first minute that the guy's no good. But to actually do, your due diligence. You got to actually watch him for the whole game and maybe watch another game and say, okay, maybe that was a bad game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so that takes a while.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, you're getting an agent that's referring a client, so to speak. Are they giving you the source of footage, like stuff like that, or are you just going to YouTube and?
No, there's now there's Instat and Y Scout and things like that. That's worldwide now. So you can look up any player, any team, and just pretty much get all their stats, all their footage.
Wow.
Have you noticed a big change in technology, like you were saying about tracking kilometers and stuff like that, from like when you first started to now, like
Massive.
rehab and recovery and things like that?
We got iPad on the bench to watch bits back. We've got we sometimes show footage at half time to make it clearer. What else is there? There's so much. The guys are live coding, so they're pretty much breaking up the game as the game's going on. You got the analyst upstairs, breaking it all down into little sections, and obviously you got the GPS and all that sort of stuff as well. So there's a load of technology now.
And when you were playing, could you hear the coach on the sideline? Or you could hear but you chose not to?
Depends, eh?
Both, depends.
So do you cop the same when do you feel like
Yeah.
And you know they can hear you, don't you?
Some of them do, and then you got to tell them a little bit sterner, and then they turn around.
Use their full name or something.
So one of the listeners has written in, did you ever have a coach that you didn't get along with?
No, I'm a pretty likeable guy.
Or you're just being cagey, you just don't want to mention any names?
No, look, you always have a butt of heads with a coach, because there's always going to be times where you don't see it the same way, and there's always going to be a time where either you're not in the team or whatever, but how you choose to react to that then is the measure of you as a person. So for me, I always felt that me being the better person at the time and not being, for lack of a better phrase, a little prick, that for me was a big thing, and that sort of did me well because no coach ever wanted to get rid of me, and not because I was a pushover, because I always had my say. It's the way I went about my business. I always tried my hardest, regardless whether I was in the team or out the team.
Yeah, great. We got one more. We'll do one more. Last question. So, what was your favourite club to have played for?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I'm gonna go Perth. You know why? Because I left when I was 15.
Yeah.
And I hadn't played in front of friends or family in that long, that coming back to Perth was real special for me.
Yeah.
I mean, my career was good. That was fantastic. But leaving at 15, you forget that you're a kid. I came back a man. And then to play in front of friends and family, albeit maybe not at my best, but I still felt a sense of pride because I was playing for my hometown. Yeah.
Do you have bigger aspirations to coach, over England, Europe, anywhere like that? You hoping to keep going? And
yeah, look, I'd love for it to be a long-term thing and progress. But for me, my main goal now is to do well here.
yeah. Beautiful.
And as a former Socceroo, you played with what we call the golden generation of players, the Kills, the Vidukas, and all that. And we made the second round, the 2006 World Cup. Since then, we've not got out of the group stage. Like, it's been, you made the World Cup and, not cannon fodder because you're competitive, but clearly we're below, the top tier nations. How does Australia bridge that gap? Because from a sporting country perspective, we're excellent. Like, from a small population, we do produce quite good talent. Obviously, we have a lot of sports here, so we don't get...
But we're not as good as we used to be.
Yeah.
But back when you go to that golden generation, we had a lot more top-end athletes.
Just comes down to talent then, just the talent pool.
I think it's talent as well, but I think we just live in a different generation. I think it's a generational thing where, we spoke about this at length, actually, in Australia about football, and the biggest thing was that we were never inside. We were always outside kicking the ball around.
Yeah.
And that's not, we've got social media, we've got computers, we've got everything, and who does any of that? Why would I need to go out and pretend I'm Ronaldo in the street when I can do it?
Put your VR goggles on now.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So what's the point? The EA Sports, what's the e-gaming now?
Yeah.
Is just as big because people don't have to be athletes anymore. But for me, I think that's probably the biggest thing is that, us as a nation, we've probably let that go a little bit, and the LIS isn't as prevalent as it used to be, and that used to be the
It used to be the biggest thing,
It used to
wasn't
be
it?
the
Yeah,
biggest thing.
I remember growing up. That's where you wanted to go as a young kid, is get over to Canberra and be in the AIS for soccer and stuff like that. You don't even hear of that anymore.
No, you just want to get out, don't you? You want to get to Europe.
Like I'm big on. We're all big on sport, and I've got a 9-month-old boy, and I talk joking with my mates. Like I want to get him into sport. Let him play as much sport as possible, keep him outside, do all those things. If you were to give advice to a young kid, sort of going down the football path, is it to get to Europe as soon as possible and get yourself into that system, or is it okay? Just make sure you're surrounded by the right people. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in Europe.
Look, I think this is sort of like the mentality that everyone has, is that their kids are going to be the next superstars. My parents didn't think that I was going to go to Europe. They just put me down in soccer because they like to watch soccer, and I used to like playing soccer.
Yeah.
And that's actually the problem with today, is that everyone thinks that at under-8s, their kid's going to be the best kid. If your kid's going to be the
13's
best...
too old now if you're not picked up at 13.
Exactly right. They haven't got a chance now.
Yeah,
what do you mean?
No.
I think we've lost sight of what we're trying to do. Sport is there to play with your friends. It's there to enjoy yourself. It's there to get physical activity. The cream will always rise.
Yeah.
If you've got a talented kid, it doesn't matter where they are and what they're doing. They'll rise quickly because they're talented.
Yeah.
Not because they're in the right system or they're doing the right gym program or this, that and the other. And I think we lose sight of that. And you then have a generation of kids that feel like, well, I haven't made it at 12.
Yeah.
Give up.
And they give up.
Crazy way to
Start
think.
e-gaming.
So you guys still play?
Well, I would love to.
I'm going for my 6th surgery in about 2 months. So
But if you had a chance, you would.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas
100%.
I don't think the kids of this generation coming up will play because they get down on confidence at 12 and 13 and go, well, I'll give it away. I'm not going to make it.
Lose the passion early.
Lose the passion because they're not going to make it. Who cares?
Yeah, there's nothing like competing. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Like I've won
Definitely.
premierships in under 16s. I've gone on to play footy and won flags with my mates. There's nothing like winning and competing. And that's 100% agree with you. It's probably what this generation of people are actually missing out on massively. So it's great to see that someone's leading the way in terms of coaching a team like Perth and hopefully heading in the right direction with this rebuild. So, Richard, thank you for joining us tonight, mate.
It's a thank you and a qualm as well. So I thought, just in case Italy didn't win, which was not going to happen, let's be honest, I thought I'll get a glory shirt. We've got Richie coming on. Rebel Sport, sale rack, $60. They're beautiful, double XL. I'm not even going to try it on. I got home, this thing looked like I was smuggling tyres. I put on a couple of kgs, but that's a tight double XL. But it also inspired me. I went home, just about cried and joined the gym. I actually signed up for a 28-day challenge. So thank you to whoever's making the jerseys, but also that's not a double XL.
We could inspire.
Yeah, so you have inspired me, man. But yeah.
That's great, mate. Look, thank you for coming on. We wish you all the luck for the new season. We'll keep in contact anyway, and hopefully we can catch up in the new year anyway. But thank you, Richard Garcia.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Richie.
Richie.
Thanks, mate.
You've been listening to Any Give and Take. Follow the boys on Instagram and Twitter at Any Give and Take.
Campione, campione, ole, ole, ole.